We remember the emperors. We recite the names of generals. We chronicle the wars they won and the lands they conquered. But what if the true architects of a thousand-year empire weren't the men who ruled it, but the minds who built it? What if the most powerful weapon Byzantium ever possessed wasn't a sword, but a blueprint? For centuries, the Eastern Roman Empire, Byzantium, was the brightest light in a dark world, a bastion of knowledge, faith, and staggering wealth. But this wasn't an accident. It was a calculated achievement of engineering. While Europe crumbled, Byzantine engineers performed miracles in stone, water, and light. They didn't just build structures. They built systems of survival, power, and awe. This is the story of the empire's forgotten secret weapon, its engineers. Every empire needs a heart, and Constantinople's heart was protected by a body of stone, the Theodosian Walls. But these weren't just walls. They were a multi-layered, psychological deterrent. An invading army would first face a massive moat that could be flooded in hours. Then, a low outer wall, manned by archers. Then, the main event, the Great Inner Wall, 30 feet tall and 15 feet thick, with 96 towering forts. But the genius wasn't in the height. It was in the rhythm. The towers were placed not at regular intervals, but at calculated distances, exactly an arrow's flight apart. This created overlapping fields of fire, turning the entire 4-mile land wall into a continuous kill zone. An enemy wasn't just facing a wall. They were facing a perfectly tuned instrument of death. For 800 years, these walls repelled every army that dared to test them. They were a statement. Do not even try. A city of 500,000 people on a dry peninsula has one primary need: water. Roman aqueducts were brilliant, but they were vulnerable. Cut the aqueduct, and the city dies. Byzantine engineers thought differently. What if the water couldn't be cut off? They constructed vast, intricate systems of cisterns, not just small wells, but colossal, underground cathedrals like the Basilica cistern, capable of holding 80,000 cubic meters of water. This was a paradigm shift from flow to storage. They turned the entire city into a camel, capable of surviving a siege for years on its own reserves. It was engineering for resilience, not just for convenience. And then, there is the Hagia Sophia, the crown jewel. When the first dome collapsed in an earthquake, the emperor turned not to mystics, but to a geometer, a man named Isidore the Younger. His solution was an act of genius. He didn't just rebuild the dome stronger. He rebuilt it lighter. He made it shallower and introduced 40 revolutionary ribs, channeling the weight down into the massive piers and hidden buttresses. But the true masterstroke was the row of 40 windows at the dome's base. These windows weren't just for light. They created a floating, celestial effect, making the dome appear to hover on a ring of gold. The engineers didn't just calculate load and stress, they calculated wonder. They understood that to control a population, you must first capture its soul. And for 1,000 years, that dome was the closest thing to heaven on earth. And we cannot forget Greek fire, a liquid flame that burned on water, stickier than pitch, and impossible to extinguish. Its exact recipe died with the empire, but its delivery was a feat of engineering. It wasn't thrown in pots. It was pressurized and pumped through bronze tubes mounted on warships, sprayed onto enemy fleets like the breath of a dragon. The secret wasn't just the chemistry. It was the system, the pressurized siphons, the heat-resistant machinery, the specialized ships. It was a technological advantage so profound it kept the Arab fleets at bay for centuries. They couldn't reverse engineer it because they couldn't even get close enough to see it. In the end, the walls were finally breached, not because they failed, but because the men defending them were outnumbered 100 to 1. The cisterns were forgotten, filled with mud and memory. The secrets of Greek fire were lost, but their legacy is all around us. The concept of layered defense, it's in every modern security system. The idea of resilient infrastructure that can withstand attack, it's the goal of every nation. The use of architecture to inspire awe and project power, it's in every capital city on earth. The Byzantine engineers have vanished from history, their names erased by time. But they left their signature not in parchment, but in stone and mortar. They proved that the most enduring conquests are not of land, but of physics. That the true empire is not the one ruled by a king, but the one built to last 1,000 years.